Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy TeflonJohn coming to you courtesy of the Art of Reinvention Show. And today we have a power-packed show. We have Valerie Waller Braxton, who is the owner of Lasting Impressions Catering Company. And let me tell you, she's more than a caterer. She's a great, amazing person. She's a great woman of God. And like I said, before we get into her interview, please share this broadcast, give us some hearts, give us some likes. And we just want you to just encourage others to watch this show so I can bring more people such as Valerie on that will share her story. Now, tonight's show is going to be centered around entrepreneurship and story and how you can overcome obstacles to reach entrepreneurship. Now, I'm going to let Valerie introduce herself and tell a little bit about herself before we get going.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, glad to have you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this opportunity. My name is Valerie Waller Braxton. I'm a citizen, I am a native of Lynchburg, Virginia. Okay. Been here all of my life. I'm the youngest of 4 children. And a little bit about myself, I'm a business owner, and I just enjoy what I do.
Okay, so you've been cooking for years?
Yes, I've been cooking probably for about 25 plus years.
Wow. So is that something that you had a passion for when you were younger, or is it just something that you did and like, hey, like I'm good at this?
Well, it was a passion that I had when I was younger. I used to always sit in the kitchen and watch my mother cook. My mother was an excellent cook. Okay. And so we really didn't have a lot, so she would take what we had and make an awesome meal out of whatever we had. So I remember sitting in the kitchen watching her cook.
Wow.
And it just became something that I wanted to do, but I didn't know right off that I was gifted in that area.
But you had the passion.
I had the passion,
So you had brothers and sisters, right?
That is correct.
So what age, I'm pretty sure normally the one that can cook, at some point you end up cooking dinner and breakfast for everyone. Like what age did you start taking over?
That did not happen in my life because my life went astray as a young teenager. So I never had that opportunity to cook for my siblings because I was always in the street.
Okay. All right, so we're going to get into that. We're going to get into your story, but you know, cooking is something, they say the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. I'm not sure.
I've known that to be true.
But I love food. You know, everyone loves food. I'm pretty sure my cameraman loves food. So catering, and I found that cooking is something that can bring people together. It brings families together, like at any life event, funeral, baby being born, a wedding. It's always food involved. So how do you think, or how important is your art to the culture, like to people, like when you cook?
I think it's very important. And I also see cooking, serving, and eating as a healing element. Families that are going through different trials and tribulations, say it's I hate to say it, but a funeral, and people come together and eat and fellowship, and it brings back memories. So it kind of takes your mind off of what you're faced with where death is concerned. And I'll give you a prime example. My grandmother, when she passed, my grandmother was the rock of our family. And so she fed her family every Sunday. Every Sunday it was dinner at grandma's house. And so it just bringing the family together and serving up, you know, maybe her most famous roast beef that she would always make. And to know that you have kind of taken on the flavor that she would bring out of the roast beef, and it's like, man, this tastes like grandma. Remember when? So food, I think, is very important. And when I say it can be healing for different individuals, I think just bringing family together and going back down memory lane, remembering when.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say healing because I'm pretty sure a lot of people have seen soul food.
Yes.
And it's almost like food, no matter what's going on in the family or, you know, the rift or disagreement, food is always something that can bring families together.
That's right.
You know, no one wants to take family photos when they're not getting along. You know, no one wants to just come around and sit in your house. But if you have a gathering of food, and it's almost like it goes deep in our roots, but that's really what brings us together. So you're in the right place. And I also hear you speak of God a lot, and I know we'll get into your past, but how important is your faith?
My faith has taken me from the lowliest of low and has out of the valley and has placed me on the mountaintop. I would be nothing without God. I understand that it's because of him that I'm sitting here today talking with you. God is amazing.
Yeah.
And I have seen him do some miraculous things. I know him as a miracle worker. My faith is very important, and I love to hear the word no. I love to hear you can't do this and you can't do that. But that's not what my faith says. Faith says that I can move mountains and I can have what I say and say what I can have, and I can speak words out of my mouth and cause situations to change. So when it comes to faith, I am a woman of faith, and I have actually put faith into action within the last 2 months. Without faith, I would not be here today. Lasting Impressions would not even exist if it wasn't for faith.
If it wasn't for your faith.
Yes.
And and that's very important, because doing the show, if it wasn't for faith. But when you talk about your past, how important was your faith then? Like, or was it as strong?
It was not strong at all. In my past, I had no idea who I was. I settled for any and everything. I was looking for love in all the wrong places. I allowed others to identify me instead of me knowing my true identity.
Wow.
And because I allowed others to label me and to try to to give me an identity, it caused a lot of heartache and pain in my life as a young woman, probably around the age of 12 to 13 years old. So it was a struggle for me. It was hard, very hard.
So when it comes to your past, and when you said it's very hard, and you were talking about you didn't get time to cook because of that, like, how do you think that molded you into the person that you are now?
Honestly, I didn't even know I could cook. To be honest, I didn't know what my purpose was. I didn't know what my gifts were. I didn't even know what the word gift meant. I had no idea. So to shape me into where I am now, you're going to have to help me. I lost my whole train of thought.
Oh, you're good. You're good. So when it comes to, your passion and your drive and everything, just looking at your past, some people let their past overtake them, where their past, they're constantly thinking about it. They're constantly reminded of it. How did you take take your past and use it as fuel, versus like a red light?
Well, I'm going to tell you, I had a wake-up call, and I had a near-death experience, okay? And that near-death experience turned my entire life around.
Wow.
So as a young woman, I went to church because I was made to go to church, whether my mom went or not. Every Sunday morning we had to go to church. Okay, so when I got in trouble and was at death's door, I knew to call on God. And the very first thing I said was, God, if you choose to take me today, please forgive me for my sins. After that experience, my life shifted. But at this point, I'm 27 years old. At that point when my life changed.
Wow.
And so that was my true encounter with God. And that's when the shift actually took place.
Got you. So would you say at that point, up until that point, you didn't value your life? You didn't have
I didn't
self-awareness?
give two hoots about a life. I mean, I was, and can I just keep it real?
Yeah, keep it real.
I was a thug. I mean, a female thug. I was just doing me.
Yeah.
Living what I thought was life.
Yeah.
But I really wasn't living. I was just existing. I was like a yo-yo on a string. I did what anybody said do. The power of influence is something else.
Yeah, it is. Influence is almost like a drug.
It can make you or break you.
Yeah.
And at this point in my life, it almost destroyed me, literally. Wow. But God had a plan.
Yeah.
And he only allowed the enemy to do it so much.
Yeah. Now let's talk about that influence, because most people now in the social media age, and I've seen a lot of people's families break up. I've seen a lot of people lose jobs because they're connected to someone who means them no good, and they're slowly dragging them out of who they are to this whole new person, and they don't see it until it's too late. What is your advice to those people who may have people in their ear that they're turning away, like, hey man, you're changing, this is not you? Like, what is your advice to them before it's too late?
Let me just say this. Have you ever heard the slogan, you can take a horse to the water, but you can't make him drink?
Yeah.
You and I can sit here all day long and give advice and talk about what's not good for you, what you should do, what you shouldn't do. I was that person. I had people in my ear telling me, Val, this is not cool. Val, this is not the way of life. I heard them, but I didn't care. I didn't hear them.
Gotcha.
And so I felt like the people that I was connected to loved me more than my family and the people that were around me that were trying to influence me to do better and to do the right thing. But it took me to make up my mind that, hey, I'm sick and tired. Once you get sick and tired of a thing, then you'll change. But you got to get sick and tired first.
You're right.
And so like I said, I was labeled all my life. But I got to the point in my life where I decided that I was no longer going to allow those labels to stick, and I was not going to be who those people said that I was. So it's about decisions and choices. And here's the bottom thing. For these young girls today, I look at all the pictures on Facebook, how they're half dressed. You know what? I'm not being judgmental because I used to work at Daisy Dukes. I was good at it. I used to do all that. I get it. But the bottom line was I was looking for approval
and validation.
And you know what? The devil wanted nothing more but to validate me in the world, you know? But after I found out who I was, God validated me. And so being attached to people that mean you no good, I'm speaking from experience. It's a stronghold. And so some things you cannot do on your own. It takes God. These are hard things.
You're right.
And so in order for deliverance to take place in my life, not only did I make up in my mind and make a conscious decision that I wanted to do better, God had to help me. And these young girls that think they in love with these men that are abusive, that mean them no good, that degrade them, really? No, they're it's called looking for attention. I've been there.
Now, how do you think someone, because I've seen like beautiful women, and when you look at their counterpart, you're like, wow, this is who you're with, this is what you're going to put up with. And I think part of it, they don't know who they are. Kind of like how you touched on earlier. They
don't know who they are, and they connect themselves to familiarity. So if they come from abusive homes or many other things that cause them to latch on. See, we draw what we're attracted to.
Got you.
You see what I'm saying? And there are beautiful women out here, and you're wondering, what in the world are you doing with him? You working all day, and he's sitting at home on the Xbox. Really? You deserve better. But deep down inside, I don't care how pretty you are on the outside. If this heart is not right and you don't believe in who you are, you settle for the first thing that come along that give you a compliment or stroke your ego and make you feel good about yourself. Wrong answer. Wrong answer. Once you find out who you are, once I found out what my purpose is in this life, there was no turning back. No turning back. But I had to find out my true identity, find out who I am. And so all that stuff that I went through in my past, I have no shame. None. Because guess what? God used it as stepping stones.
Oh, yeah, and it's your story.
My story.
Your story.
Yes.
And most people could really bring so many people out, excuse me, if they actually shared their story, because some people go through stuff and they're so ashamed. But God is giving you something, and it has nothing to do with you. It has something to do with the thousands of people. Like, how many people will see this Facebook Live and share it, they will hear your story,
right,
and be able to relate and be bought out. So a lot of people must realize that people are making money off of their story. Like, once they're bought out, they share their story, and they share their story with victims. And let me tell you, that will give you so much closure to always wonder, like, why did I have to go through this? Why me, God? And share your story and have people come to you and be like, wow, because of you, I became stronger. Because of you, I've taken my life back.
Right.
Have you ever had that encounter, sharing your story and empowering people?
Yes, I have. I've shared my testimony at numerous youth conferences. My husband is the founder of Youth for Truth Street Ministries. So through that, we used to do street services. And so I had an opportunity to witness. And after the service, I would have young women, older women come to me and say, you have no idea how you blessed me. It was years later, even now, I've had people come to me and say, hey, I remember when you ran that revival at Mount Carmel, and things you said, it blessed me. You know, it helped me. And they would say, you have no idea what you said and what you've been through, how it helped me. And they thanked me for not being ashamed to tell it.
Wow. Now, when you say like your past, when you talked about earlier, like, could you give me an example of something that you went through as a young girl, as a teenage girl, that may can help these women out?
Sure. As a young woman, I was a runaway, never stayed at home. My influence was in the street. So I was a runaway. And of course, my mother would always turn to the courts to get me off of the street. And so every time I would run away, they would find me. There was one particular police officer that would always come find me. I don't care where I was at. He would come find me. And so I ended up in the Lynchburg Juvenile Detention Center. I ended up at it wasn't Spark House then, it was Crossroads. So that was years ago, Crossroads. The judge ended up sending me, because Crossroads, you could just walk out whenever you wanted to.
Okay.
And so after Crossroads, I ended up going to Bon Air. So I spent a substantial amount of time in Richmond, down at Bon Air, a locked facility. And so, you know, from Crossroads to the detention home to Bon Air, once I got out of Bon Air, here's the thing, I didn't even want to leave Bon Air because I felt safe there.
Gotcha. It was familiar.
It was familiar. I was around a whole lot of other people like me. So they kind of became my family, not gang-like. You know, back then, it really, gangs didn't even, that was a joke. That's something you heard about in LA or whatever. But it was like I was amongst people who could identify with me. So I didn't want to leave, but my probation officer came to get me because my time was up. And that, like I said, that was at a young girl. I dropped out of high school, didn't finish school at that time. Because I was too busy running the street, you know, doing drug transactions, drug transports. I can't tell you how many times, and I'm just being honest, how many times I've left Lynchburg in a car transporting to New York and should have got caught and didn't.
Wow.
So can you imagine, we wouldn't be sitting here now if I'd have got caught. So there's quite a few things that, you know, I've done in my life that I'm not proud of, but I've done them and I've overcome, even down to drugs. Even down to drugs. You know, a closet addict. No one knew. What you see, I was well kept, well put together. Well put together. Bills paid and the whole nine. But I was one of those closet ones until my near-death experience. And like I said earlier, that's when my life changed.
And that just kind of woke you up. So with your near-death experience, and I'm glad that you keep bringing it up because it's near-death, you know, so death didn't get the victory over you and you're still here. And I just want to know, having a near-death experience, did you feel obligated to run with your second chance?
Absolutely. I would not want anyone to experience what I felt, you know, at that moment in my life. I fought to stay alive. You know, I know God was there to, it wasn't my time, but I also feel like because I didn't give up the fight, I was determined to live. I wanted to live. And so that near-death experience, a second chance, absolutely. I embraced it, and it was like I did a complete turnaround.
Now, how does that, like everything that we've talked about, your past, you know, you as a teenager, how does all of that wrap up into, hey, I want to start my own business? Like, could you walk me through that transition?
I sure can. I was employed with Applebee's International for about 11 years. As a cook, I went from a cook to a bartender to a hostess to a server. I pretty much did it all.
Yeah.
And one day, I just had this idea, hey, I want to own a restaurant, you know? And so I thought about it, and of course there was fear, and I was like, well, I don't know how it would go. I don't know how it would work. Now, mind you, at this time, I've already connected with God. Okay, so I've found him, we've reconnected, and, I'm operating fully in faith and, as a believer. And so I went home and discussed it with my husband. And of course, at that time, he said, well, let's pray about it.
Yeah.
But at that time, I had this vision, and it was like I found a building. I started doing the legwork, the homework, things. It was like a dominoes effect. Things just started to fall into place. Now, he was not in agreement with me leaving my job and starting this business. That was my first mistake, that I did not follow the leadership of the man of my home. I was gung-ho, just excited. Nothing could stop me. My mind was made up. That's one thing about me. When I put my mind to something, you can't stop me.
Yeah.
Whether it's negative or positive, you can't stop me. My mind is made up. Well, more so positive now than negative. But everything was falling into place. I had to go before city council. I had to have the building rezoned. City council was in agreement with me having the building rezoned. I had to go talk to Kelvin Moore, who was the architect. Had no idea I had to go through all of this in the beginning. But I stuck with it, and I was like, God, I know this is you. I know you're going to bless this, and I'm going to go forward. And I did just that. Later on, I gave my 2 weeks notice to Applebee's. Now, mind you, I'm leaving a salary. I was making pretty decent money. Leaving benefits and everything. And so I opened this restaurant, and that's where it all began. And that was 10 years ago. 10 years ago.
10 years ago.
10 years ago.
That's a decade.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I applaud you, because we live in to me, this is the year, or not the year, but the time of the entrepreneur, because you see it all. And to the point where entrepreneurship is becoming cool, where people are claiming to grind and claiming to do this, and they're not doing anything.
Right.
But I'm pretty sure during that process, during that transition of starting your business, you hit some very low points. Did you ever hit a low point where you thought about giving up? And could you tell us about that?
Yes, I did. I hit a very low point. Business was very, very slow. I remember it was wintertime, and I remember I couldn't afford oil. I had an oil furnace. Couldn't afford to put heat in the building. So my initial thought was, how in the world are you going to serve the public? They can't come in here and sit in this freezing cold. And I mean, it was cold. But I remember getting out of bed every morning. Downstairs in the basement of the building that I leased was an old wood stove. And so my cousin Art would come over every morning and pack that stove for me so I could have heat. And so I had a wood stove going. I would have my commercial equipment in the back. I'd have that running, the stoves. I went to Lowe's and bought heaters to set around, trying to stay warm. And the people wouldn't come. So that was a very low point for me in business. I remember my car being repossessed. My marriage was almost not over, but it was in serious trouble because of financial reasons. I hung in there with that business for 2 years. And then I finally decided I loved my husband more than I did the business. And my ultimate question to God was, did I miss you? Did I really hear you? Because I felt like if I really heard him, I wouldn't be going through what I went through. And at this point in my life, I was really hurt and disappointed by the church. Now, I will not bash the church. I will not. But I felt like that's where my support was supposed to come from. And they wouldn't even come by.
Wow.
A few would. And here I am in ministry serving with these people. And so I became angry. I was angry at God. How could you allow me to fail when you told me, to do this? When you lined everything up, when everything fell in place, why did you do this to me? Oh, I was very bitter and angry. And so I packed my business up 2 years later, And my husband tried to get me to sell everything, and I said, nope, I couldn't depart from it. I said, no, I'm not going to sell it.
It's like your baby.
Yeah.
It's your idea.
So I put some of the stuff in storage. None of what you see now is what I had then. So I kept my things. I couldn't sell it because I had that passion on the inside of me. I still didn't know what my purpose was. I was just like a ship without a sail. I was all over the place trying to figure it out. But all of my experience back then has brought me to where I am now.
Wow. Everything you've been through.
Everything I've been through.
The good and the bad.
The good, bad, and the ugly.
So the process worked.
Oh, yes, sir.
You know, and that's very important because most people, when they reach, a point of bitterness, or when they reach that grinding part, because, having an idea, like me wanting to do this show or being a personal trainer or, being a motivational speaker, the minute that you confess that in the atmosphere, the enemy's coming.
Oh, yeah.
And most of the times, I can't touch the camera from here. So I can't touch my cameraman. So if my cameraman wanted to punch me, he couldn't do it from there. He would have to get close. So let's say my cameraman being at that distance represents, friends, cousins, distance people, distance employees, co-workers. Now, what the enemy would use is people that are close to you. Mm-hmm. Your husband, your wife, your mother, your father, church members, people that are close to your heart. So you have to remember that the enemy is very strategic in when trying to attack you. So whatever you're strong at, most people don't care what people say about them. Most people don't care what people do to them as long as they stay true to who they are. But when you don't get the support from those who you think should, you see what I'm saying? It does something to you. I don't care if 1 million people support you. The one could not support you that you are looking for, and it messes you up.
Yep.
And it takes away your creativity. It takes away your thought process. It takes away your drive. And it really messes with you mentally because you feel like that because I'm connected to this person in a certain way, whether it be church family, whether it be spouse, whether it be, my brother, sister, siblings, or whatever, you feel like they should support you.
Yes.
So what I've learned in life, and I felt the same way, what I learned in life is I lower or almost eliminate expectation from people. And what it does is it protects our relationship.
Correct.
So if I don't expect you to be there, if I don't expect you to support me, hey, brother, that's fine. But when you show up, hey, I appreciate it.
Yes.
And I'm just thankful for who's around because this year in 2018, the difference is me pushing my show, personal training, doing, shows with you, is I realized that I can't force it.
Right.
So if me walking into an opportunity was like taking the key out of my pocket and putting it in the door, if it doesn't fit, hey, I got to move on to the next door. I'm not going to sit there and try to force something because what happens is, God wants us to go a different route. And sometimes God disconnects us from people because he knows like, well, if I let them do it, instead of me getting the glory, they want to give them the glory. You know what I mean? And so God knows all of this. So I want to speak to those who are feeling like, look, the reason that you're not doing whatever is because people are not supporting you. Don't worry about it. Don't look for the support. You just follow that process.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, in order for a tree to fall, you got to love chopping trees. You know what I'm saying? Fall in love with the art of chopping. Trees will fall. And I'm pretty sure you can tell them that through that process. I'm pretty sure you got in that point where I'm not giving up. I'm not going to stop.
That's right.
I'm not getting rid of my equipment now. I think that's a pivotal point in your life. Why didn't you get rid of your equipment, even though the business was on hold?
Because I still had the dream. The dream was not dead. It was just put on hold for a temporary season. So the dream and the vision didn't fade away.
Wow.
It was still there. But there's an appointed time for everything. Everything. We don't understand the process in the beginning. But as the dots are connected in our lives, we can look back and see the hand of God and how he strategically placed people in your life right when they need to be there. He'll remove those whose season is up.
Yeah.
And so I still had, I don't care if I only had that much of my dream, it was still my dream.
Oh, yeah.
And because it was my dream, couldn't anybody take that from me. It was my vision. It is my vision. you can't take my vision. You can take many things, all this materialistic stuff, but what God has put on the inside of me, you can't take it unless I give it to you. You can't take it. So I couldn't get rid of my stuff. I just could not part with it.
And you feel like you're connected with it. You go to sleep, you think about
Yep.
it. You wake up, you think about it. You get ideas. And I feel like so many people kill their drive and passion because they let other people do it. If
They're dream killers.
Yeah, if someone's giving you advice and all they do is go to work, go home, I'm not knocking that. But if an entrepreneur, Mark Zuckerberg or somebody on that level told you to stop, listen. Because it's a reason why he's telling you. He's a millionaire.
Right.
He had a dream and he made an app. So if someone that works a regular 9 to 5 is telling you give up on your dream, don't listen. You know what I'm saying? All they know is what they know. Like when you talked about being familiar, where you was like, hey, look, I don't mind going in Bon Air and with the crossroads and everything. Because this is what I'm familiar with. Like in the Bible, when the blind man was healed, Jesus told him, leave the city.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because if he would have stayed in the city amongst other blind men, he would have never took advantage of having sight. Because it was familiar.
Right.
And what he said, I see men as trees. So those men were rooted. You know what I mean? Rooted. Trees are rooted. They don't move. So a lot of times we are not where we need to be because we are around what's familiar. People, like if you go to a networking event, you're going to meet people. And it's going to be the most uncomfortable environment. You're going to meet people that you don't know, but you have the same passion.
Right. And
it's going to light that fire under you even more. You know what I mean? So it's comfortable to be around those who don't want to do anything. It's comfortable to be around those because it's familiar. So in order to grow, you have to do something that, to be someone you want to be, you have to do something you have not done before. Right. And I think Valerie is a great example because you listening to your story from your past until now, you've done things that probably made you feel uncomfortable, but it was all a part of that growth process.
Right.
Now, when it comes to your catering business and how you have it now, when you look back on your life and you look back, do you ever say, man, I'm glad I went through this because this helped me with this?
Absolutely. And I'd like to tell you how I got to this point.
Okay, tell me.
I hope I'm not jumping ahead of you.
No, you're not jumping.
I want to connect those dots for you.
Okay.
So after I closed the restaurant, I went home to do hair. And I got a call one day from Elder James Tharrington, and he said, Sister Valerie, would you be interested in working 10 hours a week raising money for the children in foster care? I don't know. Well, it's a job with the city of Lynchburg. And I said, okay, I'll give it a try. I pretty much had the job before I did the application. Okay, so I went through the protocol, went down, filled out the application. I met the supervisor. She loved me. She said, now what I need you to do is come up with creative ways to raise money for Christmas for the children in foster care. Well, children are my passion. So I had to figure out a way to raise money for these children. And so they've hired me in October, and Christmas is in December. And they needed a lot of money for 150 children. So guess what?
Wow.
I said, I'm going to feed some people. We're going to do a breakfast. And that's where it started.
Wow.
So we did a breakfast, sold out of everything we had. And I'm not saying this to toot my own horn. I'm saying it to give God the glory. We did that breakfast. I continued to do fundraisers and plate sales at social services for the people that work there. Raised $7,000 between October and December. Every last single one of those children were sponsored for Christmas. And you know what I said? All that equipment I got in storage, maybe I need to start catering. And that's where it was birthed.
Yeah, for such a time. Huh?
For such a time.
Yeah, that's, what's awesome about that is you end up getting back into your passion by serving other people.
And let me say this. I talked about being in the detention home, the crossroads and all of that. Well, yeah, I was as a teenager. So as a teenager, I was riding in the back seat of a social services car. As an adult, I was driving a social services car.
Wow.
Transporting teenagers to the detention home.
Wow.
To Opportunity House. Well, not if I went to the Opportunity House, of course, it's male oriented, so I always had a a male to go with me. But amazing. From the back to the front.
So the last show before.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But it excites me when I think about it. I mean, I look at the big picture.
Yeah.
So I don't regret anything that I've been through. God has used it
Yeah.
as a testimony of his greatness and who he is. And if he did it for me, he can do it for you.
He can do it for you.
All you got to do is want to. You got to have the want to. I wanted to.
That's it. And you know what's great about your story is you didn't give up.
I did not give up.
You didn't give up. And you have every reason. She has every reason not to have Lasting Impressions Catering Company. Think about how many of you are sitting down right now, and if you're watching this video at home or at work on your break, think about how bad you want something new, your own business. You know, how bad you want to stop working for someone else. But you think and you get comfortable and you let your past become a hindrance. Use her story. Her story should motivate you to work beyond and work past obstacles. You know what I mean? Now, instead of her going around her obstacles, she actually went through it, gained from it, and let that process help build her as a person. Because I'm pretty sure some of the life skills she has, some of the resilience she has, you know, some of the perseverance she has came from everything that she went through. You know what I mean? Like, I've been through a lot in life too, and we'll share that on a different interview. But let me tell you, the things you go through in life, you got two options. You let it crush you, you let it get you down, or you learn from it and let it build. Now, you know, I've been a personal trainer since 2012, and the easiest way to put on muscle is to break muscle tissue down. You have to go through a workout, you have to reach failure, you have to reach exhaustion, and I'm pretty sure you've met every one of those.
I have.
You know, and so I'm glad. You know, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. It's a pleasure to have you, you know, share your story. Is there anything you would like to say to those who are on the edge or on the tipping seat of starting a business, or is it anything you would like to say to those who are going through that will motivate them?
So one day I was watching Family Feud, and at the end of the segment, Steve Harvey, he always encourages his the audience.
Yeah.
Yes, the audience. And he was talking about jumping. Those of you who are interested in starting a business, and you know, he was talking about jumping and not being afraid, and listening to him, it leaped in my spirit. I heard him loud and clear. It was like he was on a loudspeaker in my ear. I could hear it. It leaped within my spirit. I caught hold to it and I jumped. He said, you're going to pull that parachute cord and you're going to soar. You might hit a couple of trees on the way down. Your landing may be rough, but don't give up. Keep that parachute open. Continue to soar. Follow your dream. Follow your passion. I held on to that. And regardless of what people said, 2 years later, I have seen it manifest. It has come to pass. And guess what? I took a leap of faith. I opened that parachute, and guess what? I haven't come down yet. I'm still gliding. And in the midst of me gliding in the air, blessings are just overtaking me, running me over. I was afraid of the what ifs. I didn't want to go back to familiarity of failure, but guess what? I jumped out of the boat, stood on the water, and looked at God in front of me and held out and said, you know what? I'll keep my eyes on him. And so those of you, I want to say this real quick. If you would put your thumb up in front of you and focus on your thumb, and if you look at it, if you have dreams and goals and you stay focused on your thumb, all you see in front of you is your thumb. You see everything else around you, but you stay focused on that thumb. You don't let anything from your right, from your left distract you. You stay forward. You put your dream in front of you and you continue to follow it. That's what Valerie Waller Braxton has done. And with the help of God, he has made all things possible. And guess what? My best is yet to come. You haven't seen anything yet. Everything that I've asked for, he has given me. Full catering service. And the business just flows word of mouth. And so my leap of faith, and I might as well just put it on out there, I'm ready to do this full time.
Wow.
Because I have that kind of faith. I didn't go through all I went through for nothing. I went through what I went through to get to where I am today.
That's right. Now, how did they get in touch with you?
Well, you can visit me on my Facebook page. I had a website, but the Russians hacked it, so I had to shut that down. That's real talk. Yeah, they wanted my credit card information.
Shut it down.
Shut it down. So you can contact me through Facebook, Lasting Impressions Catering Services. You also can go through my personal page, Valerie Waller Braxton. And you can also contact me at 434-401-1017. We're also located at 1801 Miller Drive, right here in the beautiful city of Lynchburg, Virginia. So I look forward to chatting with you. Hey, if you need some business ideas, encouragement, whatever the case may be, holla at your girl.
Hey, Valerie, it was a pleasure to have you. Hey, look, I'm going to have her back. I got some ideas and, things I've really, the wheels really been turning. But I just love how you shared your story. I appreciate you being vulnerable, really sharing your story. But with her sharing her story, right, it's just like, you ever had a toothache, Valerie?
Yes.
So what did you do for your toothache?
I went to the dentist and got it taken care of.
But did you put anything on it?
I did.
What did you put on it?
I used Ambusol and BC powder.
But how did you use it, though, the Ambusol? Could you demonstrate it? Are you pouring it out?
Oh, no, I put it on a Q-tip and went inside my mouth and opened up my mouth and swabbed the area that was...
So you telling me that bitch buying the Ambusol is not going to do anything?
No, you got to put it on. You got to activate it.
Everything she said tonight does no justice if you don't apply it to your life. You see what I'm saying? Just like her having that toothache, she bought the Ambusol, she had to apply it to the tooth.
That's right.
You have to take everything that we said tonight and apply it to your life. It's one thing to be motivated, but you can only be motivated for a moment. But you have to use that and apply it to your life. And I just want to encourage you guys to continue to follow us. We're going to have more powerful people. This will not be the last time you will see Valerie. I tell you that. We appreciate you sharing your story. We appreciate you coming on. Yeah, go ahead.
There's something I want to clarify. I said to you that I dropped out of high school. Yeah, I did. But at the age of 27, I went back, got my GED, and went on to Liberty University and pursued my degree in psychology. So there were things in my life that I didn't complete. So I had to go back and complete them. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Never too late.
Never too late.
It's never too late. We just want to encourage you guys. You know what I mean? That's why I do the show. I try to highlight people in our community, locally or wherever. So if you have a story, contact me. As long as I'm motivating and inspiring you guys and just provoking thought. And you can reach me at IamTeflonJohn@gmail.com if you would like to be a guest on the show. Or if you have any questions for Valerie, just put them in the comment section below. She'll be tagged in this post. And like I said, continue to share this and like my page at Facebook.com/RealTeflonJohn. And as I always say, one love, be blessed.